Good morning, everybody, and happy Aloha Friday, and welcome to PSG of Mercer County. The professional service group of Mercer County is here for you. Anybody that is in any kind of career transition, doesn't matter why, it could be excuse me, that you're taking your own career transition in your own hands. It's an opportunity for you to change careers or get back into the marketplace. Or like what happened to me twice, my company, or your company in your case, has made a decision to reorganize it and impacted your career, which we're sorry to hear about. But we are here to provide you with all manner of resources and support to help you make your job search more effective, to make you more effective in your own job search. And by the way, we were just talking about virtual meetings and such. Today is National Streaming Day. And so it's something that we've all done quite a bit in the pandemic over the past 2+ years, is whether we're streaming in meetings like this, or maybe we're streaming on movies and television shows, and watching a whole series in a weekend, whatever that is. So there's a national day that celebrates National Streaming Day. So maybe when the meeting's over, or if you have some time this evening, you'll go back to your favorite sitcom or show and you can stream all evening long. PSG of Mercer County does provide a lot of resources for you, for anybody that is in a career transition. One thing is we do have our LinkedIn group, and I do encourage you, if you have not yet joined our LinkedIn group, please consider doing so. It's a little bit of a private group. It's not hidden. You can find it. Just type in the group section or in the search section, PSG of Mercer County. We have over 1,700 members, and they're all people that are or were job seekers, and that's why it's a bit of a private group. We don't accept everyone who joins. What we do is we do kind of screen them to make sure that they are a member of our group or have attended our group at least once, either online, and I can see your names are here, and we check our weekly attendance, or also if you are on our emailing list. So I do check, and if not, I'll just reach out and send a nice email asking you to send us that information or verify your attendance. And the reason why we do that, to limit the potential number of members, we only want people who are job seekers or were job seekers, because job seekers understand the needs of job seekers, and we feel it'll make the group more productive for us. So join our group, and even if you have only a small number of first-degree connections in LinkedIn, you'll get up to 1,700 more connections. They won't be considered first-degree, but you can send them LinkedIn emails, and that can be very powerful when you do your job search. In addition, we also have our website. Our website is psgofmercercounty.org, psgofmercercounty.org. It is over 120 web pages of content. There's a lot of information on that. Last week, I did let you know or remind you one of the pages we have is our e-learning page, and I typically don't like to remind people of the same thing each week, but in the last week, we've added 3 more e-learning websites. And you may say, well, so 3. We now have 87 e-learning website links on our e-learning websites page. So in a few minutes, I will put the link for that in chat. Chat is, by the way, in that upper right corner, a little circular icon, and you can click that, and that's where you can read comments from each other or leave comments from each other. Here's my flashcard. Kind of looks like that. I know that's a drawing, but chat's in the upper right corner. I have flashcards for people who are having difficulty connecting their microphones and headphones. So I'll put that in just a moment once I introduce Mark and then turn the meeting over to him, and you can go check that out. In addition, as I mentioned, we have a YouTube channel, and that's also available through our website. On every page of the website, on the right side is a YouTube logo, their red logo, and if you click on that, you go right to our YouTube channel. Right now, we have 100 topical videos, all posted since March 2020. So this is number 101, or will be 101 when it's finished, and that'll be posted later or tomorrow. So we have a lot of resources for you. So just as a reminder, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Mark in just a moment, and he is going to share his screen and show his slides. And he has sent me the slide deck, which I will post a little later today, and you can get all of the slides that were provided and other resources, all of them provided by our presenters on our website as well. On the right side of every web page is a link at the top, meeting presentation documents. So look for the link on the right side, meeting presentation documents. This is a meeting, and Mark has provided his presentation documents. That's why we call the link that. And you click on that and just search for the meeting of interest by date, and you can get the documents that we have for each of those meetings. So that's what we have. So Mark will provide that, has provided, and I'll post that a little later. So for right now, PSG of Mercer County is just very pleased to welcome back Mark Beal. For more than 25 years, Mark Beal served as a public relations practitioner and marketer at one of the nation's leading consumer public relations agencies. Mark led the strategic development and execution of award-winning campaigns for such category-leading companies and brands as Amazon, Coca-Cola, Capital One, GlaxoSmithKline, Pfizer, Bristol-Myers, Nestle, Purina, Kleenex, Taco Bell, and Adidas. His campaigns have leveraged some of the world's most popular sports and entertainment properties, including the Olympic Games, FIFA World Cup, the Super Bowl halftime show, and the Rolling Stones. Mark is now a full-time assistant professor of professional practice in public relations in the Rutgers University School of Communications and Information. Mark has authored 6 books, including Career in Transition, 101 Lessons to Achieve Job Search Success, which is now available on Amazon. And I do have several of Mark's books. They're wonderful, easy reads. PSG of Mercer County is always pleased to welcome marketer, professor, author, and keynote speaker, Mark Beal.
David, thank you very much for the introductions. It's always great to be back. I look forward to being in person soon. Let me first share my screen. All right, everyone is hopefully seeing the full screen perfect.
Yep, we do.
The timing of, and by the way, I love seeing some familiar faces, Alex and John and Carol and others, and I know you've heard me present before, so there may be some slides here that are similar to what you've heard in the past, but for those who are new, this should be new information, insightful information that you can apply immediately to your career transition. The timing of this presentation is ideal. Exactly a week ago, I was in Dallas, Texas. I was invited to present to a convention of 500 executive recruiters. So these are recruiters from around the country across different industries, from marketing to accounting to IT to you name it. And they all gathered for the first time since the pandemic to kind of compare notes and discuss their business, the business of, again, identifying candidates for jobs to place with their clients. And the anecdotal information that I was getting from the moment I arrived to the moment I left was, we have many, many, many more jobs than people to fill. In other words, we've got lots of openings across all of our clients, and we are looking for candidates. Obviously, as we all know, that wasn't the case back in March, April, May of 2020. It started turning a little bit in May, June, July of 2021. But in May of 2022, from again, 500 executive recruiters across all industries, across the entire nation, consistently on day 1 and day 2, I need more candidates. I need more applicants. I need more, people I can identify who I can bring to fill these positions. I have so many positions, and my biggest challenge right now is trying to fill these positions. So again, if you're in a transition, that's good news, right? That's good news. So if you're in a transition, that's good news. It's also an insight to be, well, if I'm not in touch with a recruiter of any kind, maybe I need to, dig a little bit and see who potentially is a recruiter in my space, in my industry. Again, all the recruiters I've ever worked with in my career, and I know others, including Alex, can talk to this later, but typically they have a focus in a certain industry. So throughout my career, I've worked a lot with recruiters within marketing, within public relations, with advertising, and it's really the one space they play in. But again, at this convention in Dallas last week, there were recruiters again across every industry, and that's the industries that they focus on. So I thought that was just timely information. Hopefully that's also positive news and positive insights for those who are transitioning and looking for that next opportunity. But that was just 7 days ago when I was in Dallas with that group. I'm not going to spend much time on my background, David. Thank you for the great introduction. I do just want to hit on one thing. Just 2 to 3 weeks ago, I did release my 6th book, Gen Z Graduates to Adulthood. And the only reason I bring this book up today is because a significant portion of the book is dedicated to the feedback, the recommendations, the advice from 65 of the oldest members of Gen Z, ages 22, 23, 24, 25, who've graduated in college in the last year, 2 or 3, and it's their advice to employers on how to recruit and retain Generation Z. Now, I think their insights and their recommendations and advice applies to all generations, but there's an entire section there just dedicated to the employer. As we know, the workforce has transformed significantly over the last 2.5 years. How we work has transformed significantly. Where we work has transformed significantly. And so as part of this book, I thought it would be interesting for those who've just joined the workforce or are joining the workforce, this new generation, Gen Z, which Fast Company claims by 2030, Gen Z will comprise 30% of the workforce. So, just about 1 out of every 3 employees at a company will be Gen Zers. It's their recommendations, their advice, their insights to employers to how to recruit, how to retain this particular generation. So again, just wanted to throw that in there just to make you aware of at least what I've been up to lately, since I do know a few of the folks on the call today. And as David said, I co-authored with Frank Career and Transition. So when I present, especially when I present in my class and my courses at Rutgers University, I start the first 15 or 20 minutes of each class, with what I call real-time, real-world news. What's happening in the real world? In the cases of my courses, it's real-world marketing, real-world advertising, real-world public relations, but I like to do that with every presentation. So these are just some headlines from the past week or 2 or 3, again, to set the tone. And I think everybody on this call is probably really familiar with this, but I just think it's important to understand where are we in the 3rd week of May in 2022. That first headline is from the New York Times, and I think that's about 10 days ago, maybe a little bit longer, but workers are gaining leverage over employers right before our eyes. Employers are becoming much more cognizant that, yes, it's about money, but it's also about quality of life, work-life balance, ability to work remotely a couple of days a week, right? All those things. And I'm not going to go through all the headlines, but the theme of these headlines is that for the employee, for the worker, for the first time since I can remember, I believe the employee, the worker, is actually in control, has the opportunity to really influence everything from work location to benefits to salary and other things, because it goes back to, I think, that insight that I gave on the cover slide is that, there are more positions open than candidates. And so when they identify a candidate, whether it's a recruiter or an employer, they are looking to see how can we get you to commit to our company? What can we do to make it more attractive for you to join our company? What kind of benefits can we offer? Again, aside from just compensation, aside from just salary. So again, these headlines are from, again, Fast Company, the New York Times, and other outlets, but all of them have that theme of, again, the employee, the worker. 60% of workers would consider quitting if asked to return to the office full time. I hear that a lot from folks who call me and talk about the idea of as the work location situation transitions, they may look to go elsewhere. Businesses are struggling to attract workers, but it isn't because employees and job seekers have mismatched goals. And then, of course, we've got the Great Resignation and all of the effects of the Great Resignation, both on the employer side as well as the employee side. So again, these are just headlines from the last week or 2 or 3 or 4, but I think it sets the tone for where we are from a workplace perspective, from an employee perspective, from an employer perspective in May of 2022. Bridge that to kind of the main focus of what I'll talk about today, which again, those who've heard me before have heard my presentation. So, but this is, from again, a candidate's perspective. So if I'm looking at myself or we're looking at ourselves, right? Personal branding, the key to success in the digital age. Whether you're an individual or online business, personal branding is crucial to propelling your online presence. And I know week in and week out, this group discusses that quite a bit, but the idea is that more than ever, more than back in 2014 and 15 and 16 and 17, personal branding is more important, and the way you go about not just identifying and defining your personal brand, but the way you amplify your personal brand in today's digital age through your own media channels, which I'll talk about in a couple of slides. You know, marketing yourself, developing your personal brand, followers, stories, posts, and DMs. These combined are your ticket to building an excellent personal brand. Again, content, thought leadership, producing and distributing that content, and then amplifying that content across platforms, including LinkedIn and many others. 10 powerful habits for building a personal brand and marketing yourself. That's, in essence, the theme of what I'm going to talk about over the next few slides. Building and promoting your own personal brand is as important for you as it is for any company, maybe more. So again, I'm going to go into some slides now that some of the folks on the call have seen already, but it really all goes into that idea. Building and promoting your own personal brand is as important for you as it is for any company out there, but it's probably even more important. I'll explain why. So again, for those like Alex and Carol and John and David who've heard this, I apologize, but for those who haven't, hopefully this is insightful. Hopefully you're going to have some aha moments here, some light bulb moments, and these are things that you can take away immediately and apply to your the transition you're in currently. So we just saw from those headlines, right? The importance of a personal brand, the importance of leveraging your personal brand, the importance of amplifying your personal brand. So I say this all the time, and I truly believe it. Whether you're in IT, accounting, or any other industry that's not marketing, starting now, you need to think and act like a marketer. If you've never done any kind of marketing in your life from a professional standpoint, you now need to be a marketer, the marketer of your brand, the marketer of your search, the marketer of your transition. Nobody else is going to do it. I love when I get together with this group because everybody on this call wants to help, wants to support, provides incredible advice, preventable insight, incredible networks, and that's the greatest thing we can look for when we're in a transition. But at the end of the day, when you wake up in the morning and go to bed at night, you and only you are responsible for being the marketer of your brand. Alex will help you, David will help you, others will help. You got to go ask for that help, or you've got to join calls like this, right? So so anyone on this call, you're already taking that major first step of being the marketer of your brand, right? You're joining these kind of collaborative calls to gain insights, gain valuable information that you can apply to the marketing of your brand. But if you've never thought of it this way, you are marketing yourself, you're marketing your brand with the goal of earning, or I like to say winning, the next opportunity, right? But at the end of the day, it's all about you being the CMO of your personal brand. And when we talk about a CMO role, and if none of us have been CMOs, that's fine. But the CMO role involves everything I'm about to go through. One, I am a brand. That's important, because if you don't understand and recognize your brand, you can't market your brand. Two, here's what comprises my brand: past successes, case studies, unique elements of me and my personality. Three, I've now got to go amplify, market, leverage my brand. And part of that leveraging is not just the channels, but it's also, as David talked about earlier, the connections, the connection points, those in my network, those in a network like those who belong to a group like the group we're a part of today. So that's what we're going to talk to over the next couple of slides. I kind of just said this, but I use this image because, again, no matter how many allies we have in our network, no matter how many great people we have that want to help, will do anything to help, ultimately, you've got to look in that mirror every day and say, what am I going to do today to market my brand? What am I going to do today to connect some dots? And one of those things is actually joining this meeting, right? That's a huge step. Joining this meeting, there should be some great things that come out of this meeting, not just my presentation, but that come out of the entire meeting, that all of a sudden allow you to, market your brand just a little bit more, connect a few more dots, get a little bit closer to that target company, all those things. But again, there's an army behind you, whether you know it or not. but you're leading the charge. You are leading that group. You are the CMO and kind of making the decisions from a strategic standpoint, a creative standpoint, and a tactical standpoint as to where I'm going to take my brand today, tomorrow, and over the next few months. This is just, I love headlines, I love articles, but this is a good one that this is back from May 2020, but I still use it, right? If you look at that note in the middle, faced with the volume of competition, meaning all those competing for jobs, it's essential that you sell, I would use the word market, but sell yourself. That means making it clear why you are the best candidate available. Selling yourself can feel uncomfortable. Marketing yourself can feel, absolutely, especially if we've never been in a marketing position, right? It can feel very uncomfortable. Well, I don't want to necessarily ask this person for this. I don't want to necessarily, call in this favor of this person. I don't know if I want to post a piece of thought leadership content on LinkedIn. Maybe it sounds too self-serving, all those kind of things. But it's truly essential. If you don't point out your best qualities as a candidate, who will? Another great point. You can have a lot of contacts who will make a referral for you, a recommendation for you, and they'll do their best. But only you and you alone can, again, position yourself, market yourself, call out the best qualities as a candidate. Only you can do that. To get past any feelings of shyness, modesty, or discomfort, think like a marketer. Develop a marketing and sales campaign for your job search. That's exactly what I'm going to do over the next 6-7 slides. As if it was one of the many toothpaste options in the drugstore aisle. So what they're saying is we are all, even if we've never been in marketing, we've been on the other end of marketing and advertising messages, right? Whether they're coming from Gillette or Nike or Coca-Cola or somewhere else. And what Madeline's saying in this article and what I say is, think of yourself as that brand. In this case, she talks about toothpaste. Think of yourself as Crest. Think of yourself as Coca-Cola. Think of yourself as a brand. And how am I going to market and advertise and promote my brand that's going to separate me from the competition as we all pursue this opportunity at this particular company? Doing this will help you assess your strengths, strengthen your performance throughout the application process, and develop a strong brand that will make you stand out from the sea of applicants. On that previous slide, she talked about a toothpaste brand and other brands. So, again, Nike, Apple, those are brands. But if we look at it from a human perspective, whether you like Tom Brady or not, he's done a heck of a job developing, marketing, and amplifying his brand. Just this week alone, I'm on TikTok. So just this week alone, I was watching some content he put out there on TikTok. And again, had nothing to do with football. Nothing to do with football. It was about his brand. Serena Williams, the same way. Look at that quote from Serena Williams. I think that's from Fast Company. I work on my brand all day from my computer. She doesn't say I work on my tennis game, doesn't work on her serve. She does those things too. But those are just two small examples of human beings like us, who recognize that their brand is actually bigger than the sport they play. Their brand is bigger than touchdowns and serving aces, right? And they do a great job of it. They may have a team that helps them do it. Of course they do. But we can be the Tom Brady. We can be the Serena Williams. You don't have to be a Super Bowl champion or a Grand Slam champion to have a brand and to market your brand. Each and every one of us is a brand. Each and every one of us has license to promote and market and merchandise our brands. We don't have to get approvals from anyone. We don't have to get permissions from anybody. We can do anything we want. We really can, to market and extend and amplify our brand. We are the owners, the publishers, the creators, the marketers of our brand. We don't have to go to a boss to get approval. And what do you think of this LinkedIn post? Now, it doesn't mean you can't go to a friend or a contact or someone you trust and say, hey, I'm thinking about posting this thought leadership piece on LinkedIn. You want to take a read? I'm all into that. I do that all the time because I do want to get someone else's opinion. But the idea is you don't have to go anywhere to market your brand. You don't have to go anywhere to get approval to tweet this or post this or do this or try that, right? So again, hopefully this is maybe one of those aha moments where maybe up until this point you never realize, wow, I am a brand. I stand for something. I represent something. I have successes. Just like Tom Brady has Super Bowl championships, I've got success stories. I've got case studies. I've got some great things I've done in my career that I can now, as part of my brand storytelling, I can merchandise. So again, if before today you didn't think this way, hopefully when you leave today, you do think this way. And now I'm going to just take you into a few slides about, okay, well, now that I realize I'm a brand or understand that, how do I bring that to life? Well, just a couple of quick steps here. First thing is very simply, you know where you've been. David talked about that idea of, right, you know where you've been, you're in a transition now. Whether that transition is your decision to make because you want to now go into maybe a different career, you want to launch a new company, whatever it might be, or whether that transition was forced on you because of downsizing or something else. So the question now is, where do you want to take that brand of yours? Where do you want to go with that brand? What do you want the brand to represent? For you and you only, what is success 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 18 months from now, 3 years from now, right? These are things that you have to kind of, if I was doing this, and I've done this, I'd go to Staples, I'd grab those big old white poster boards with the stickies on the back, and I would literally put them up in a room, and I'd start kind of writing everything down and brainstorming. And if you've got a couple of real close friends or colleagues or trusted confidants, I'd even invite them in there and offer them a little something to join you for a fun brainstorming session. Again, for 30 years, I did this for brands. I used to go in and do this with brands. But now we want to do it for ourselves. We want to look at where's our brand been, but where do we want to take our brand? What's the vision for our brand? What does success mean for us? All those kinds of things. So one, you are a brand, you have a brand, you represent lots of great things. Two, where do I want to take my brand 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? And I think you have to, just ask all those questions if you haven't, to kind of set yourself or set the foundation for where you want to take the brand. Two, we talk a lot about SMART goals, SMART objectives, and I'm a big believer in these because they are much more detailed and defined than simply, I want to get another job, I want to get a new job, I want to be working somewhere in a month or two. That's kind of loose, right? That's not really measurable. That's not really time bound. I'll give a good example here, and this is not necessarily the best example maybe for everyone on the call here, but as my students were finishing up the semester and they were graduating as seniors, one of the assignments that I give them is to develop their own personal brand marketing strategy to help them secure the job that they're hoping to get following graduation. And part of this personal brand marketing strategy is to develop SMART goals, SMART objectives. Because again, typically what they'll just do is the objective will read, I want to get a job after graduation. That's just not enough. We know that. What does that even mean? Sometime after graduation, I want to be working. That's not enough. So I'll go back and I'll say, where specifically, what industry, what kind of companies, where do you want to be working in? Those kinds of things. And then once they come back to me with that, and I'll make up an example and say, well, I want to work in sports and I want to work in sports public relations marketing. Great. So I'll say, here's a SMART objective for you. Starting, and so again, we're doing this in the spring semester, starting March 1, 2022, every single week, I want to make one meaningful connection in the greater sports marketing, sports public relations, sports business world. Now that's a SMART objective. It's highly measurable. Once a week, I want to make each week I want to make one new meaningful connection. If Friday comes and I didn't make that connection, I failed. That means next week I need to make two. It's measurable. It's time bound. Every week I've got to do this. I've got to focus on making one new meaningful connection in sports, public relations, marketing every week. That's time bound. It's very specific. It's in the industry they want to get into. It's very specific and I think more important and achievable and relevant and all that. But more importantly, to me, it's a SMART objective that ladders up to the bigger objective of when I graduate, I want to secure a full-time role in sports, public relations, and marketing. right? It gives them a chance to evaluate and analyze the progress they're making to get to that, we'll call it the ultimate goal. Because if they only have that ultimate goal of, yeah, when I graduate, I want to work in, I want to work. Well, that's, again, it's not measurable, it's not time bound. But by having this, we'll call it, sub goal or sub objectives, that's very measurable, very time bound, very specific. To me, it's going to ladder up to achieving the ultimate goal. So again, just something we've all heard of SMART goals. We know what they are, but as we look at our brand, what are those SMART goals for us as a brand, us as an individual, us as a job seeker, over the next 30 days, the next 90 days? And again, it shouldn't just be secure that job. It's got to be, there's got to be more to it than that. So if you agree with me, and if you're aligned, and if you're not sitting there saying this is all a bunch of baloney, but if you agree with me that yes, I am a brand, yes, I have a personal brand, yes, I need to go out there and market my brand, I need to leverage channels out there, including LinkedIn and many others, well, then you've got to figure out, okay, well, what's my story? What's my narrative? What's my brand narrative, right? And I've said this before, and I truly mean this. You've got to think through the narrative, and I'm going to give you an example in a moment. I just did this yesterday with a 12-year executive, so someone who's 12 years into the career who's now in a transition. We spent an hour just on this yesterday, You've got to take a step back. Again, whether you want to use old-fashioned poster boards, which I love to use because I can visualize it and see it, and you've got to kind of take an inventory and an audit of all the great things you've achieved. I'm a big believer, and I think that we forget a lot of those things, right? We've done so much in 10, 15, 20, 25 years, 30 years. I think we actually forget a lot of our successes. Sometimes it takes writing them down to remember some of those successes. So that's kind of the first part of this. What is my brand? What are some of my successes? What are some of my case studies? What's unique about my brand? What's different about my brand? What's different than maybe the others competing for this job? And then once you figure that out, and you figure out those, what I like to call those 3 key messages. So every time you interview, there's 3 key messages you're going to deliver each time. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Your successes and case studies will serve as proof points for those 3 key messages, right? But once you figure that out, how do I tell that story, that brand narrative, in a 60-second elevator pitch, in a 60-minute interview, or in a 3-hour session where I'm being interviewed by 3 or 4 people at a time, and it's a roundtable discussion? Because as we all know, you've got to figure out the narrative, but then more importantly, you've got to figure out how do I customize the narrative based on the discussion I'm having. So as this group knows better than I, that first discussion may be simply a 5-minute call with a recruiter. That may be all it is. And it may be a phone call. And as I like to say with phone calls, they can't see you. They don't know how you're dressed. They don't know if you're slouching. So what they're basing it all on is the voice, the confidence, the articulation. I like what this person said. I like the story they told me in 5 minutes. So brand narrative is a fancy word for storytelling. What is your story? How do you package your story? And how do you articulate your story? And again, just a quick point here. Stories, your story doesn't all have to be work related. You may speak 4 or 5 languages. That's a powerful part of your story. You may have a black belt in karate. I think that's a real powerful part of your story, right? What does a black belt stand for? Dedication, commitment, excellence at the highest level. Man, I'll hire a black belt any day of the week, right? So the story is not just, I did this, I did this, I did this at work. It's also a combination of some other unique things about you. So anyway, a real quick story here. Yesterday, I spent a solid hour, if not more, with a executive, 12, 13, 14, 15-year executive who wants to make the transition. He's in the job now, but maybe not 100% satisfied. He wants to make the transition. So he's currently applying for other jobs. And where he was kind of getting hung up, or where I guess he was stumbling and where he wanted my help was, he said, how do I articulate what I've done? how do I do that again, whether it's a quick 5-10 minutes with a recruiter or in a 1-hour interview session? I said, well, first thing, let's take a step back. What have you done? Let's go through some things you've done. And as we did that, he's like, man, I forgot that I did this 2 years ago at this other company. And when he told me the story, I said, that's powerful stuff. That should be one of your headlines as you interview. But he completely forgot about it. And it took kind of talking to somebody else and saying, well, what do you think of this? I did this 2 years ago at this other company. I said, that's powerful. That's real powerful. Not only is it powerful, you've got success metrics to go with it. That's got to be part of your story. But I think a lot of us, like him, thought, we kind of check our egos at the door. And I think a lot of us think, well, it's not that big a deal. I did this 2 years ago, or I did this with my team 2 years ago. But by telling a kind of a third party like myself, I said, no, that's very powerful. That's got to be part of when you're, again, part of your narrative, part of your storytelling. So we basically spent an hour going through things he had done in his career, whether individually, whether as a leader, whether as part of a group. And we kind of started to prioritize and rank them as these should really be part of your storytelling. The other thing he got hung up on too was that he came from a background in public relations and had a lot of experience for 10 plus years in what we call pitching media. So pitching the Wall Street Journal, pitching the New York Times to get his clients or his employers in the media. But he hadn't done that for the last 2 years because his role at a major company had shifted and it had gone from pitching media to more strategy. But he loves the idea of, good old fashioned public relations and pitching media. And I said, don't focus on the negative. He was looking at the negative of, well, yeah, for the last 2 years, I haven't done that. So what if they ask me that? Focus on the 10 years you did do it. Don't say, well, I haven't done that for 2 years, but I used to do it. No, I actually have 10 years of experience in that area. I have passion for that area. I love that area. I've had successes in that area. So again, it was nothing he probably couldn't have figured out on his own at some point, but I became the sounding board. And it was flipping the script and creating the storytelling that was going to be most compelling to the recruiter, to the person doing the interview. And it was just things like that we spent a solid hour on. And when he got done, I think he felt really, really good. And again, it was more just, it's similar to when in my career, you're preparing a CEO or CMO to go on CNBC or to go on Fox Business or to go on any live TV show. And they've got basically 4 minutes to conduct an interview, but the interviewer is going to ask 3 or 4 questions, so you really don't have 4 minutes. So you have to figure out what are the questions they're going to ask me, and how do I answer those questions in 30 to 40 second sound bites. And so I draw parallels between preparing for a media interview with a live television to preparing for a job interview, whether with a recruiter or with an executive or what it might be. So long story short on this one is, we've all had successes. We all have unique and compelling elements to our brand story. We've just got to kind of take inventory, audit those, prioritize those, and figure out what are the key elements here that are going to deliver, communicate either as proof points or as, again, that 1, 2, 3 key messages that I want to consistently get across. So once we kind of have a sense of, okay, here's my brand, I am a brand. Here's what my brand represents. Here's where I want to take my brand in the next 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever it might be. Here's my successes. Here's what I've done really, really well. Here's also some really unique stuff about me, right? I'm a black belt. I speak 3 languages. I run ultra marathons, whatever it might be. You want to now take what we call in the marketing business your owned media channels. I know most of us probably don't call them our own media channels, right? And we really wouldn't. There's no reason to, right? We say my LinkedIn page, my Twitter account, whatever it might be. But in marketing, we call these your owned media channels. And I just want to emphasize why. Because just like you have LinkedIn and just like you have Facebook and just like you may have a podcast, you might have a blog, you might have a vlog, you might have a YouTube channel, whatever. Or you might only have LinkedIn, which is fine too. You own that channel, just like Coca-Cola owns their channels, just like Nike owns their channels. You don't have to pitch an editor to write a story about you on your channel. You don't have to buy an ad and invest dollars to have a story about you or your thought leadership on your channel. You own those channels. You are the owner, operator, publisher, editor, content creator for those channels. As I said a few slides ago, you don't have to get permission. You don't have to get license. You don't have to pay. You own those channels. And so you want to use those channels, as one of those headlines said, in today's digital world, to amplify, to extend, to communicate your narrative, to communicate even your job search. And if it's just LinkedIn, nothing wrong with that at all. Nothing wrong with that at all. But you might have, an appetite to expand that. You might think, yeah, I think I do want to start writing some blogs. And maybe I can write those blogs and I can write them on a kind of a blog site, but then I can amplify them through Twitter and through LinkedIn. Or maybe you do love audio content and you decide, I'm going to start my own podcast. Bottom line, it doesn't matter necessarily what the channel is. It's the fact that you own those channels. And as the CMO of your brand, you can do whatever you want with those channels. You can check with your friends and your colleagues and those to say, hey, what do you think of this piece I'm going to put on LinkedIn today? There's nothing wrong with that. But ultimately, you push the button. You post the content. You make the decision. There's no one you have to get approval for. So I think the idea is the power of your own media, whether you realize it or not, you got it. You have it. Leverage it. Use it. Amplify it to, again, get your brand out there more. Some of that content, and I know it's tricky for all of us, some of that content can just be about the search, can be about, hey, I'm in the transition of my career. I'm looking to go here next, right? That's compelling human interest storytelling to me. If written the right way, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I had one senior executive 2 years ago who kind of got over that hurdle, and once he realized that, maybe people don't mind reading about my search, he immediately got response, reaction, and people saying, let me help. I want to make connections for you. But it took him a while to get over that. One, he thought it was too self-centered. Two, he felt it was, embarrassing is not the word, but, hesitant to kind of put out there that I'm looking to make a switch. I'm looking to transition to my career. I'm looking for the next job. But again, in writing it and positioning it the right way, I think it can come off as, again, compelling storytelling that will engage your audience, engage your network, engage others to say, how can I help? What can I do? Who can I call? What can I, so all those things. So you're a brand. You've taken time to think of your narrative. You've taken time to think of your storytelling. You've taken time to think of your proof points, all those things. You've got your own media channels ready to go. And now I draw a parallel between what I did for many, many years in trying to get new business from companies, from leading companies, to the job search. To me, there's a reactive search and there's a proactive search. And there's nothing wrong with the reactive search. The reactive search is, going on Indeed, going on LinkedIn, and seeing what jobs are posted and applying. That to me is reactive. Complement that with the proactive search. Now that you've got your brand, you've got your narrative, you've got your channels, research and identify 5, 10, 15, 20. Wouldn't go much higher than that. Target companies. These are companies, big or small, profit or nonprofit, that I want to work for. I've done my research. My past experience, my past successes will bring value to these companies. I want to go after them. That to me is the proactive part of the job search. And again, the number, can be anywhere 5, 10, 15, 20, because again, we can only focus on so many prospects at one time. And I would even rank those so that those top 5 are the ones I'm going to put even more effort into. I'm going to figure out everything about how they hire. I'm going to figure out who knows who at those companies. I'm going to get connections in there. I'm going to get my cup of coffee interviews, and I'm going to just immerse myself in those companies and those organizations to the point where me and my brand are going to walk in there and we're going to secure an opportunity. So again, if you haven't done this, it's to me one of the most valuable parts of this transition, one of the most valuable elements of the transition. And in this case, as I said, less is more. I know it says 25 there. That's probably too big a number. Start with 1, start with 2, start with 3, start with 4, start with 5. Who are 5 companies that I want to go work for? Here's the other thing that I think is great about this too, that's changed since 2019. Nowadays, the way companies operate and work, this could be a company that's based on the West Coast, but they've gone more to remote working. They've gone more to a virtual workplace, right? We didn't have a lot of that in 2019. So these could be companies that are 5 miles down the road from where you live, or 30 minutes into the next city, or they could be, companies that are looking for talent like you in a remote fashion. Real quick story, I've got 2 former students who both live in New Jersey, who both work for a San Francisco company that throughout the pandemic went from physical to completely virtual. So there's a benefit to everybody. For the company, they can now seek talent all across America, not just in San Francisco. And for the employee, the two former students of mine who live in New Jersey, they're working for a San Francisco-based company, but they're doing it from their homes. They're not commuting to work. So again, there's more of that, as we all know, since 2019, 2020. And so there's even opportunity there.
Excuse me, Mark, there's a
Yes.
question?
Sure.
Yeah, so there's a question from Alan in chat, and he's asking, how do you find the smaller companies?
Well, here's what and again, I know I always lean on the marketing, so I got to be careful here because I know a lot of us, we're in other industries, but so don't penalize me for going back to marketing all the time. Give you a quick example. So, we think marketing, we think advertising, and you think the big city of New York, right? Everybody's on Madison Avenue. That's where I've got to go. I've got to commute there. Well, I decided one day to do my own research because I live down here at the Jersey Shore. I live in Toms River, New Jersey, and I had a lot of folks like me who for years got on that train, got on that bus, 2 hours, 2.5 hours each way every day. That's 5 hours of commuting on good days. On bad days, it was 6, 7, or 8 hours, believe it or not. And he said, I'm a little bit burnt out from it. But there's probably no companies here at the Jersey Shore, right? I said, give me a day, I'll let you know. I identified 20 advertising, public relations, marketing, social media agencies in Monmouth and Ocean County that range from 2 or 3 people to 30 people. No one knew they existed. No one. I just did some research. I just started researching, started doing some Google searches. As I did that, I dove in a little bit more, researched the companies. I developed a list, which, believe it or not, right here, that's sitting on my desk that I have at my fingertips. I developed this list 2 years ago. In fact, I'm having lunch with the CEO of one of these companies on Monday, a company based in Red Bank, New Jersey, that I never heard of, never knew existed, but through my research found it, and he and I are having lunch 12 o'clock on Monday just to connect, just to collaborate, just to learn what he does, who his clients are. So I think, again, it's, at least for part of that, it's just doing a little bit of digging. I think you'd be surprised to find smaller organizations, smaller companies that are within 5, 10, 15, 20 miles of where you live. And at least in my little world of marketing, public relations, advertising, I found 20 that are within 15 to 20 miles of where I live here, and I didn't know any of them existed. I didn't know any of their names until I actually did that research. And now I collaborate with about 10 of them on a regular basis, where I just talk to them, I connect, they call me, hey, do you know any folks qualified for these roles? I didn't know they existed 2 years ago, any of these companies. So I don't know if that helps. Hopefully that helps a little bit, Alan.
Yeah, I think so. Also, Jerry put in the chat, you can go to the library for Dun & Bradstreet. That may be a way to start. And another thing I put was what used to be called Reference USA is now called Reference Solutions. It's a list of basically every company in North America. And you also go to your library and use their subscription. So some great resources out there. You can do the research similar to what you did, Mark.
Yeah, and again, I know we all live kind of in different areas of the state or around the state, but even think about, I just 2 weeks ago went up to Bell Works, the old Bell Labs in Homedale, New Jersey. If you just go on their site alone, and I'm exaggerating here, but there are 20, 30, 40, 50 companies at that campus of all different types, all sitting in Homedale, New Jersey, from 3, 4 people companies to hundreds and hundreds of employee companies. companies. So that's another thing too, is there a center or an area where there's a lot of companies, like a campus like that may be somewhere near where you live? And so with that example, I go right online to Bell Works, and it lists right there every company that's headquartered in that Homedale location. And from there, you can click on the links, and from there, you can actually look at the job postings each of those companies have. But I think the average person, including me, would have no idea, wow, there's 20, 30, 40 companies based there. They're hiring. I had no idea. I didn't know this was right here in Homedale, New Jersey. So I think there's also those centers of where companies maybe are based like a campus like that.
And also what's relevant about Alan's question is small companies tend to be very hungry for great talent. And you could say, well, every company should be doing that. Yeah, but they need to compete against the big companies, and they're going to be less concerned about if you have gray hair or older experience or that kind of thing. They really want your core talents. And so, you can probably compete more strongly with smaller companies than you can with larger ones.
I completely agree with you. I wrote another quick example. I had a former student at Rutgers who's probably now out maybe 4 or 5 years, been in the marketing business 4 or 5 years, and he was ready to make a switch. And of course, his eyes were on the big New York City, right? I want to go big. And through his research, he found a very innovative marketing agency 5 miles from Rutgers. I didn't know of it. He didn't know of it. None of us. He told me the name. I'm like, never heard them in my life. He's now been there for a year, and he's like, I love this place. Maybe it's 30 people. But again, as David didn't say this, but I'll say it, bigger isn't always better. 30 people, company like that could be a great place to work for. It doesn't have to be 30,000 people. Anyway, long story short on that is neither he nor me realized that there was a 30-person innovative digital social media marketing agency, 5, 6, 7, 8 miles from Rutgers University that we'd never heard of. And now he's there a year and just can't say enough about best decision he made in his career. But yet he was looking at all the well-known, famous, ad agencies on Madison Avenue in New York. We'll wrap it up here in another slide or two. So, and I know Alex and others have a strong POV on this. So you've got the brand, you've got your narrative, you've identified your target companies, whether that's 5, 6, 7, 10, it doesn't matter what the number is. I like this idea of creating your own job search tool. I'm sure somebody else has a fancier name for it than job search tool, but here's why. Job search tool is not your resume. My feeling is your resume features and highlights what you've done in the past. And so if you and I grabbed a cup of coffee this morning, you'd bring your resume and I'd look at it and say, wow, this is great. Wow, great success. Great. But my questions after that would be, but where do you want to go now? Where do you want to take your talent? Have you identified 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 companies where you want to go? That's where my conversation with you go after we did 2 or 3 minutes of reviewing the resume. Because I'm more interested in where do you want to take your brand now, not where you've been. Where you've been is incredibly important because that's going to be part of your storytelling. But if you're meeting with me or Alex or David or John or anybody else on this call, I think the questions are going to quickly be, but where do you want to take your talent? And so to me, you create a very simple one-page job search tool. I did this with a 20-year plus veteran at Coca-Cola who got laid off and is now working and enjoying where he's at now. He'd never been laid off in his life. And so we sat down and we did this. And so there's the basics in that part one, just, name, phone number, contact information, all that good stuff. But there's a couple other key elements here. Number 2, what type of titles are you seeking? And I think that's important. And again, I'll put it into my world of marketing. I had one candidate who 2 years ago said, I only want one job. I want to be the CMO of a company. Well, that's pretty limiting. That's very limiting. In fact, good news is 2 years later, she got that job and she's enjoying it. I just spoke to her yesterday, but it took 2 years to get that job. If she had said, I want to be a CMO, but I'll take an EVP marketing, I'll take an SVP marketing, I'll take a director of marketing. All right, that opens it up a little bit more. So bottom line is it's what kind of titles, in the industry you're looking for, are you seeking? That's important. Next is, who are those 5, 10, 15, 20 companies you've identified and that you want to go work for? And this is why this is important. And I'm not just saying, I keep saying me, but you sit down with David, sit down with Alex, sit down with anybody. The goal is, as you sit with people in your network, if you've got 20 on that list, the goal is that every person you sit with over a cup of coffee or a slice of pizza, they have just one connection at one of those 10, 15, 20 companies, not 20 connections at 20 companies. No, if they've got one connection, that's all you need. One strong connection. And when I mean a connection, someone they can call on your behalf and say, hey, I know so-and-so. They've got great experience, great successes. You've got an opening. In fact, here's the link to the opening. I think you need to meet with this person. I think you should speak to this person. I think you should interview this person. That's the idea of this job search tool. It's giving me and everybody else who wants to help you and will help you a roadmap for where you want to go, with very specifics around, of course, the industry, the job titles, and specifically the companies. Because if you and I meet for coffee over your resume, and we got done a cup of coffee, and we say, Ken says, hey, it was nice to meet you, so long. Well, we didn't really accomplish anything, to be honest with you. But if we get done the cup of coffee, and we went through this job search tool, and I say, well, I actually know someone at company number 3. I'm going to go back to my office down. I'm going to email them, and I'm going to copy you, and I'm going to make an introduction and say, I think it'd be really smart for them to bring you in to meet with you. Now we've accomplished something. We've just spent 30 minutes over coffee, and we've actually made a pretty good connection and pretty good progress in advancing your personal brand. But if all we did was meet over your resume and shook hands and left, we actually didn't accomplish anything. So that's that idea of the job search tool, is where I want to go, and can you help me with just one connection at one of these companies? And not everybody's going to have one connection at one of these companies, but through networks like this, through groups like this, through your network of, again, family, friends, neighbors, former classmates, former colleagues, former vendors who you used to give business to when you were at a company and used to love you for that, well, they got a lot of connections too. So those are all those connections. So next slide here. Just again, real quickly. You are a brand, you have a brand, you are the CMO of your brand. Define that vision for the brand. Where do you want to take your brand 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months from now? What are some of those smart goals we can set for your brand specific to the industry, the job, where you want to take it? Develop that storytelling around your brand, and don't limit it just to the X's and O's of the successes in work. There's probably some other great things around your passions, your interests, your hobbies, your other achievements outside of work. You know, look at those own media channels you have now. I'm sure just about every one of us is on LinkedIn. That's a great channel. But are there other channels that you're not utilizing, or are there other channels you may want to launch? Do that research. Identify those potential customers, those 5, 10, 15, 20 potential places where you want to go to work, and then get your army, get your allies, mobilize them to make that one connection to one of those companies and open that door just to crack. You know, the idea, since we're in baseball season, let them help you get up to bat. Once you get up to bat, you will do your thing, but let them help you get up to bat. You get up to bat, you'll hit the home run, right? But sometimes we need help of someone else to just give us a chance to get up to bat. Thank you very much. I will stop sharing this, David, and we'll get out of this. Or maybe you can stop sharing it. Why can't I do that? I got it. Sorry. So I hope that was valuable and helpful, and hopefully a few light bulbs, went off, and a few aha moments as well.
Mark, thank you very much. I really appreciated, right from the start, you said you define and amplify your brand, and why it's more important than ever before. And, you really gave us 6 easy steps to really, develop and start marketing our brand. I think one thing that can be overwhelming to people that are hearing this for the first time or struggling to get into this is the one of, work within your media channels. A lot of people, if they're not very familiar with, either channels or, social media or what, get a bit overwhelmed. It's like the 1,000-pound elephant. How do you start? So, start with one. Just find one to get started. And, the one I always recommend to people in their space in social media is start with a one where your industry is, where they're the most common, that they like to use. So there could be, tens or hundreds or thousands of media channels, social media sites, but just start with one. That'll make it a little bit more manageable when you get good at that one, you can move on to a second or a third. So this is incremental. You know, it's not diving into the deep end when you don't know how to swim. You're going to start in the shallow end and get into the deep end as you get more comfortable.
And I think, David, even, you know, as you said at the beginning of this session, just the channels that this organization, that you and the organization use, I mean, those are just great examples of how you're, as an organization, amplifying content and messaging and all those. I mean, you guys are a great example of that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so certainly. And, you know, somebody figured it out already. The companies in your space have figured out which is the one that their customers and their vendors and everyone else. So just piggyback on what they're doing. So start there. And then that's the audience you want to initially reach anyway. So that would probably be a good place to start. So don't view these as big steps. They're, you know, just make sure you understand how to work with each one of them. You know, start with easy goals, then move on to bigger goals and so forth. So yeah, great information. So thank you, Mark. And certainly we and I am very appreciative that you continue to be such a big supporter of our group and others in our space.
Any other questions? Or
yeah, so folks, an opportunity. If you still have a question for Mark, please feel free to do so. We're not a very big group right now. If you want to quickly unmute, or if you're a little shy, you can just type it in chat and we'll keep an eye. So give you a moment or two. Oh, I gotta find the recording of the Jeopardy music that I can play. So yeah, so any questions for Mark? I did put Mark's contact information, or I'm about to, there it is, his Amazon page if you want to see the books that he's published, his website, and his Mark Beal Media email address. So if you do want to follow up with him separately, you can, and follow up as you need. Okay, so no one's unmuting right now, so I think what we'll do is just move along. And want to let you know what we're doing over the coming weeks. Next Friday, May 26th, it's actually Memorial Day weekend. So we have decided to take Memorial Day weekend, or that Friday, off. So PSG of Mercer County will not be meeting next Friday. We will send out an email, of course, reminding you we're not meeting next Friday. But we will be back in 2 weeks, June 3rd. I can't believe it's June already. Ed Samuel will be back. Coach Ed Samuel, tougher interview questions and how to answer them. Very relevant topic for a lot of people in job search. So remember, we won't be here next week. So I hope you enjoy your Memorial Day weekend and it's fun and happy and safe. And then June 3rd, we will be back with Ed Samuel, tougher interview questions and how to answer them. And of course, you can visit our cousin organizations, PSG of Central New Jersey. They meet virtually each Monday morning at 10:30. They may shift on Memorial Day to Tuesday. It's not uncommon for them to shift on a Monday holiday. So you can check them out at psgcnj.biz, psgcnj.biz. And that's not this Monday that they would shift. If they do, it would be the following Monday is Memorial Day. And PSG of Morris County, our cousin organization from the Great White North, psgmc.org, psgmc.org. And you can check out their programs as well each Wednesday at 9:30 in the morning. And they open up their virtual sessions early at about 8:30, so you can have a nice discussion as well. So in just a moment, I'll officially say so long to folks, but we are going to turn off the recording and we will keep the microphones open. If you want to hang around the meeting room and chit chat a little bit with any of us, feel free to turn on your mic, turn on your camera if you'd like to. We'll hang around. But do have a safe, happy, and healthy Memorial Day weekend. I do hope it's prosperous and fun for you. So we won't see you, unfortunately, next Friday, but we will the following Friday. And until we get to see you again, I'll simply say, bye, everybody.